Jeff, it's nice to be here. This is a great studio you put together. It's a nice opportunity to kind of sit here and just have this conversation because we don't get to do it that often.
We don't.
So it's quite delightful to do this.
Usually talking on the phone or emailing, but exactly. This is really nice.
Exactly.
Nice energy here.
Yes, you've done a great job with this studio. It's really excellent.
Thank you.
So, I thought I would like to have a conversation around what this year looks like in a simple way, but what's going on with people. We're beginning to both notice a lot of changes that people are going through. People are waking up. This is a year of a lot of opportunity and a year of a lot of noise. Mm-hmm. So one of the things that I've been watching is people who are waking up, and many people who have been in the spiritual game for some time. Mm-hmm. There's a level where it's still fascinating. Mm-hmm. It's a hobby. It's something that I want to do, and yet that other foot is still very much anchored in the noise and the movement around of that third dimensional game. So what are you noticing with a lot of the students that you have? How are they beginning to become more conscious about this? How are they handling this ascension, this evolution in their own space?
I think the biggest challenge is the level of distractions. Distractions are one of those things that seem to come to the forefront kind of at that, when you're really at that threshold of enlightenment, whether you've been studying on that path for years or lifetimes, you come to this certain point, and it's almost like the dragons and the demons right at the doorway. And I think it's everything from your own unresolved aspects, or what we call aspects in maturation, aspects that are trying to mature. Part of it is your own heartfelt love of the planet. You're not quite ready to let go of the regular human experiences. It doesn't really make any sense in a way, because when you think about it, you'd have been working on the realization or the enlightenment for so long. It's what so many people want more than anything else. But yet there's that, well, I'll just play the game a little while longer, or perhaps I wonder what's over there. I wonder what's on the other side of this thing that we call realization. Is it death? Is it something so removed from kind of the nice part of drama, and having a kind of a sensual but limited identity? So I think there's that hesitation, that pause. And that's when all the distractions seem to come in. Mm-hmm. Distractions with yourself, members of your family, your friends, global distractions. What I see in this coming year is a tremendous amount of global events, smaller things, but a lot of them.
One right after another.
One right after the other, almost exhausting.
Yeah.
But nothing so overwhelming as in a 911 situation. But a lot of irritants and a lot of distractions coming up.
Yeah, noise.
A lot of noise.
Now, one of the things that I notice is it's hard for people to make that choice. Mm-hmm. I know what I know.
Right. And
a lot of people, I've watched it in a lot of our students, they basically are clearing away what I refer to often as who they're not. Mm-hmm. You're not good, you're not attractive, you don't fit, you're not smart. All those I'm nots that people grow up in, the old programming. Yeah. Even when they begin to clear some of that away, the shift in focus, the kind of stepping across the line, looking at themselves in the game from this point of view, looking at the game versus from this point of view, looking at it. That's the piece that I'm watching people have a challenge with, because I don't know what's over there. Even though they're beginning to naturally step into these higher dimensional levels of consciousness, they have platforms to view things from, but they aren't familiar. Mm-hmm. And so because they're not familiar, it's like having a glass here, and it's always been there, but I've really never defined it as a glass, and so I keep looking for the glass until somebody finally says, this is what it is.
Right.
And then they begin to move from that space. So I'm just watching people not know how to make that choice, or even when they know how, they simply have a challenge choosing to believe that they can perceive from that side of the game.
Well, have you noticed, too, that some of the students want somebody to make the choice for them?
Oh, absolutely.
Like you, or an entity, or somebody else. or to tell them how to do it. And that's actually a phenomena that I see over and over again. But actually, it's the antithesis of what really happens, because there are guidances all along the way. So many different spiritual books and classes and teachers who can kind of incrementally bring somebody up to a certain point. When they get to that certain point, that kind of bridge to realization, they're all on their own.
Absolutely.
And it has to be. And it's also, we talk in our work a lot about when your spirit guides leave. And it brings up the question with some people, well, how come they have spirit guides and we're told we don't? Well, at a certain point, you let go of those training wheels.
Yeah.
And you are on your own. And it's frightening, but it's also exhilarating. It brings up a lot of doubts and questions, but it's also probably the most amazing time a soon-to-be master will ever go through.
Yeah, this is that lifetime.
Yeah.
That we're all about this.
Yeah.
Now, it's interesting, in Mastering Alchemy, the whole focus of Mastering Alchemy is building that light body and then stepping into it and then merging with all that you are. And we're at this point in Mastering Alchemy, it's fascinating, after going through this process for a number of years. Back in September, I had to say, we're done.
Yeah.
Come January, we're done. You have accomplished what you have come to do. And it's a challenge for many people. It's like, well, what do you mean
was
we're
that
done?
A big decision for you?
It was a big decision for me, and it was clearly the right choice. It wasn't me saying we're done. This is an evolution of them in that ascension process into that light body, and you have arrived. It's not well, I'm tired of doing this, I'm going to do something else. It was the answer. It was the completion point. There was nothing. I mean, there's everything beyond that, but there was nothing further to do. You simply have absorbed the soul and the oversoul and the Christed consciousness, and it's now in the body. But a lot of people had a lot of challenge. It was like, what do you mean you're going away? What do you mean we're not going to do this? What do I do with myself? And these are very sophisticated, well-trained people who are very successful at becoming this light body. And yet even in that group, it was like, well, I'm not sure. What do? I don't know how to step into that. And I think that's what I'm watching with lots of people, especially a lot of the people who are beginning to wake up. They don't know what this means.
It's interesting because you and I don't get that much of a chance to talk.
Yeah.
I feel your energy all the time, but rarely do we really sit down and talk, chat on the phone once in a while. But it's interesting. Recently when we were talking, I think we both realized that this past year, 2014, we're similar in a lot of ways. And you had made that decision. It's done. We're moving on to a different level. We're not trying to just expand from that level. We're leaving it behind. On the same token, in January 2014, a year ago, Adamus basically stood in front of the group at our monthly webcast and told everybody, I'm leaving. And you could, including me, I was probably the biggest one.
Like, what do you mean?
Couldn't you tell me about this beforehand? And he said, I'm going to a different level, and I can't drag the old stuff we can't drag the old stuff with us, and you're welcome to join me at that whole new level, but in the meantime, everybody get up and leave. There was about 80 or 100 people in the live audience, and he literally made them leave.
Get up and leave.
Yeah. And he invited listeners they're listening at their home to do the same symbolically. And he said, only come back if you're ready for the next step. Otherwise, if you're just doing it, as you mentioned, as a hobby, or you're putting a toe in the water, it's really going to hurt. We're going to a level of consciousness and physical, mental, and spiritual experience where you will get so messed up. So you have to be absolutely committed to yourself, not to Crimson Circle, and in your case, Mastering Alchemy, but so committed to yourself that this is it. And it was phenomenal. Then so many things happened over the years.
Sure. Yeah, we've had a similar experience with this. It was one of these things where building this light body is visceral. It's changing the molecular structure. It is what we're doing. And I'm watching people have extraordinary experiences with this as they step into it. But Metatron was really clear. If you step across this line, if you begin to bring this level of light and consciousness into the body, and you choose to go back into that third dimensional space, you begin to argue with it, you begin to get in those lesser, noisy, vibrational fields, it's going to hurt you. The physical body can't hold those old, reckless vibrations of anger, rage, resentment. And you're going to have a physical, a mental, an emotional, and a spiritual challenge.
Or breakdown.
Or breakdown if you try to go back in and play in that space.
So that's a very, very interesting point. And I know you're in your work, there's a lot of focus on light body. We've been working on it also within Crimson Circle. But good point that if you're really opening and allowing for this, it'll hurt if you're not totally committed. I mean, physically, you're going to have a physical reaction. What about the mind? What about the thoughts? What happens to those if you're not going through?
Well, we say this all the time. So you know what happy, excitement, pleased with yourself feels like. You know what anger, disgust, depression feels like. Those are vibrational fields. And when you simply are in these higher, smooth, vibrational fields of well-being, joy, ecstasy, beauty, and you step into these lower vibrations of everything's not right, it's like an earthquake in your space. But mentally, it begins to be very disruptive to your mental fields. One of the reasons is in the body work that we play, there are 3 layers to that mental, emotional body once it's remerged into a singular body, which it was always meant to be. But the work is you begin to eliminate, short circuit from the higher vibrations, anger, rage, resentment, the noise. So when you step back into it, the body just doesn't have a place to tone that or manage it or store it. And it begins to be these very reckless vibrations running through the mental, the emotional, the physical bodies. So,
have you noticed with yourself or with the students that in this whole process there's almost kind of a reemergence of a lot of old memories, thoughts and memories that maybe one thought they already dealt with or they just forgotten about that suddenly are percolating up?
Yeah. Well, the nature of our work is get rid of those thoughts and emotions. You don't do it intellectually or you don't go re-feel the emotions, but in the process of is neutralizing those old vibrations. Most of those vibrations that we walk around with, they're not even ours. It's really somebody else who said, I don't like you today. Why are you stupid today? How come you're not attractive today? And then we say, what's wrong with me? And can't ever solve that puzzle or answer the question. So then we put it into an unconscious state so I don't have to deal with it. That's what's coming out. But as you begin to know yourself, all of that which is not you, I'm watching in these people, in that emotional, mental body begins to just simply neutralize, short circuit out. So in our side of it, it's a very specific focus in the mechanics of the process. But the fact that these people are doing it sets that template for everybody to basically know it. So that's what makes it so fascinating.
I think that's one of the hardest challenges for people going through this process. And another distraction is that there's this flood of thoughts, memories that just start coming up. And it's very easy to look towards them, to put your attention on them.
Absolutely.
And then to question what's wrong with me. And of course, Adama says, and as you just stated, he'll even give a percentage. I think it's like 92% of the thoughts that float through your mind aren't even yours.
Aren't yours.
They were picked up along the way, adapted along the way. Not a sinister, aliens injecting them.
Experience.
But, they're really not yours. And kind of oversimplified, but actually very beautiful. Somebody will say, well, what are my thoughts then? Which of these 8% are mine and 92% not? And Tobias is the one who said years ago, the thoughts that are yours are the ones that you're choosing.
Exactly.
It's that simple.
Exactly.
But on the other hand, it's I'm finding an intensity even in my own experience right now that so many of these things are coming up, and I've actually been able to just step back as an observer.
That's the answer.
Not get tangled in them, not wonder why they're there, and then had an interesting experience recently. I forgot what I was doing, but it was inconsequential, watching TV or something, and suddenly I felt like I was falling, like I was dropping through, just free falling into nowhere, into some dark abyss, and it was rather frightening. And it wasn't an out of body experience; it was just
An awareness.
absolute free fall. And for a moment, I tried to stop it, like take a big deep breath or, pinch myself really hard. And then I thought, hang on a second, either I'm having an amazing experience or I'm dying, which is an amazing experience.
Sure.
So I let it be, and I fell for just a little bit, but then it stabilized, and then I felt I was floating. Well, later on, I talked to Damas about it, and I said, what the heck is that? Why did I feel I was like falling into nothing? And he said, you weren't falling. Everything else was rising, was leaving.
Yeah.
And he said, you just had a ton of old junk that you were carrying around, and it was ready. It was ready to go.
Yeah.
So he said, literally, it was going out, which made you feel like you were
falling down. Interesting. One of the things that I found that has been the most helpful over the years in talking to people is one, you can't be not okay. Mm-hmm. It's impossible to be not okay. So if you can just have that concept. But as all this stuff comes up, why is my marriage of 25 years ago coming up? I thought I dealt with that kind of thing. The simplest answer is it's leaving.
Yeah.
It's leaving. So what happens is rather than grabbing a hold of it and saying the worst question you can possibly ask, why are you here?
Right.
Definitely the worst question.
Right.
Everything stops emotionally, mentally, and it says, oh, well, we'll tell you. And all of a sudden, it's in the body and it's alive and well.
I really think you should repeat that again.
I will say again.
That's such a point.
It's simply leaving. So if you cannot grab a hold of it, not argue with it, not go, oh my God, that space. What amazing if you can at that point then just simply take a breath. It's leaving. Turn your head. Take 3-4 steps. Just start out the door. Yeah. By the time you get the door, you do not remember why you're walking to the door.
Yeah.
It's that quick. Yeah. It's gone. But it's the grabbing it and asking the why.
Yeah.
And if you can just take a breath, just like you're saying, it wasn't you, it was everything going away.
Because the moment you say, why are you here? What's my lesson? Or, geez, I thought you're empowering it. You're energizing it.
Exactly.
And it's, again, one of those demons and dragons at the doorway to enlightenment.
Yeah.
And it's leaving. And I think that's such an important thing.
And it's simple.
Yeah.
And see, so much of this is simple. It's not easy necessarily. It's simple. We're like a freight train at 90 miles an hour, and we say turn left, and everybody goes, oh my God, no, you don't understand. It's like, yeah, I know. Just turn left. And finally they turn left. Then why didn't you say that before? Is what they say. But I'm watching this unfolding, and it's that simple place of being present and allowing everything to move around you. You're short-circuiting out all of the who you're not, all those old emotions that never had anything to do with you. I had an experience in the etheric realm the other night in the sleep space, and I was with Metatron, and he was basically saying, look at all these people that are basically in that 50, 60, 70 years old range. And when you look, those are our students.
Yeah.
We don't have 20-year-old students for the most, occasionally somebody, but mostly this is really 30, 40, 50, 60, but to a great extent in that 40 to 70 level.
Yep.
And he said, look at all those people. And we did, and we watched. And he said, do you see how they've already had all of these experiences in all those lifetimes? And they come here and then they think that they have to rehab those experiences because something was wrong. They didn't do it right. They have to fix it. It's my life path. And he says, do you see any of that life path? And there was no. He said, their job, they've already done this. Their job is to observe it, allow it to be, and watch it simply neutralize.
Yeah.
But the key was we were watching it in the etheric emotional space in the fourth dimension, that emotion, mental body of the earth, everything that's stored around the earth, all those thoughts that have been thought but never been acted on.
Yeah.
And he says if you just look at them from that space, this is the job of all those people in that age group. Their job is, they've done it already. They just simply observe it and allow it to be gone.
Yeah.
And that's their service to the rest of the planet, is simply neutralizing those fields so everybody else can basically not have to go through a lot of that stuff that has no value to them.
And once in a while I'll hear from somebody saying, and we're doing all the tough work here so they don't have to go through it, but maybe we should make them go through a little bit of it.
No.
But to add to that also, Damas has said that when you allow that old memory and emotion just to pass through, suddenly when it does, it's not locked in the old energy that it was. And you realize at that moment that the experience that the mind remembered and the emotion locked in was not really what happened. It was to a small degree, maybe a sliver,
Yes.
but there was a bunch of the pie that you didn't see.
Right.
Because you were so focused at that moment of trauma, the mind and the emotions locked it in, created its own version of what happened, and you didn't see all the rest of the beauty.
Yeah.
Whether that the rest of the experience was third dimension based or whether it was multi-dimension doesn't really matter. And also, when you lock that emotion and the thought in, it's locked in a time sequence.
Yes.
Which time is not really. Time is
an application.
A whole nother discussion,
Right.
But it's a perspective in a way. And suddenly, once you're free of that, once you're not getting tangled up in it, and you're not owning it in the old way that you owned it, and suddenly you get to see the beauty of it, and you literally get to travel, in a manner of speaking, travel back in time to re-experience it in its real nature and its full nature.
Absolutely. One of the greatest sets of, call them healings, but observations of watching people to change is people really, really stuck. I mean, like, this is the truth. I was bad. It's a very interesting thing if you can just get them to basically say, here, let's go for a walk together. I guarantee you, if we walk around that thought of how bad you are, by the time we get back to the beginning, it looked nothing like you think it did. Mm-hmm. And when I've done that with people, the explosion of tears and release of that energy is just phenomenal. And yet they simply go, wow, it wasn't true.
Yeah.
And it's amazing.
And if you're always looking at this vase of roses from this perspective, straight on,
exactly,
you never see
exactly
the entire thing. And once you see the entire picture, it absolutely changes it.
See, this is what is so important about that, where we started the conversation, about being able to not dabble, not keep worrying about, what if it's not true? What if I go through that door and it's nothing changes? What if it's worse? When you're asking those what if questions, you don't go through the door. But one of the things that I've found in my experience, and particularly now beginning to have this light body experience, is you get to stand in that place in present time with no judgments. All those things are gone, and simply in a vibration that radiates light. It's that light that starts to affect everything. People just simply start to think differently.
Yeah.
It's for no reason at all. And I say this to a lot of these people moving into this light body stage. It's like you're watching people floundering out in the ocean. It's freezing, cold, raining, very uncomfortable. And your job is to simply create a beach. Don't think, just create the beach. Make it beautiful, make it warm. And one by one, they'll start to see it. They'll wind up on that shore, and then 10, and then 100. And then pretty soon, they've all moved out of that space, and they don't remember they've ever been in that water.
Yeah.
And that's the job of all of us in this space of beginning to step into this spiritual alignment in this fifth and higher dimensional space in a body.
In a manner of speaking, I think it's part of our commitment, but also experience to now put our consciousness into whatever you want to call it, enlightenment, realization, fulfillment. It doesn't really matter, but our consciousness has been, we've kept it back here as the student, as the learning, going through a process, but we've thought about enlightenment in human terms. Am I going to have more money? Are my health problems, relationship problems going to go away? But very, very few people have allowed their consciousness to go into this realization, into the completion, and which is kind of interesting. It almost seems a little bit obvious, but Damas has said that we have some great talks. But I said, so what if none of this is real? What if it's all a figment of my imagination, and Jim's making it up, and I'm making it up, and we're all making it up? He said, actually, it doesn't matter, because consciousness is such that the moment you put your consciousness into, it's not your thoughts, but your consciousness into that, then it becomes so. So in a way, he said, you really are creating realization.
All the time.
It's not like a place that's already there, inhabited by thousands of ascended masters, although it is, but he said it's really not, because you guys are doing it different. The old ascended masters, they have their own place, but you guys are creating someplace different. So he said, whether it's crazy or not, whether it's real or not, has nothing to do with it. It's are you going to put your consciousness there? I think a lot of people we work with, and I'll even include myself in that, are maybe a little doubtful or wary, because it's like, well, where am I putting myself? And that's where you have to take that huge leap and say it doesn't matter. To me, the consciousness is the culmination, the completion, the integration of every part of yourself, past, present, and future. And
I would change a couple words. I hear you what you're saying. So one of the things that I'm aware of is you really go nowhere. Everything comes to you.
Right.
And so this space of being able to manage your attention point, the same consciousness as you're saying it, one of the things is the consciousness is density. Consciousness, as we understand it, where we're sitting here talking and as human bodies, is a very compressed aspect of knowledge, of wisdom, of awareness. And so when you start to get into these higher dimensions, this fifth dimension, fourth dimension is an interesting place. It is non-physical. It is a conceptual realm of consciousness. But when you begin to get into the fifth, the compression of the energy, the knowledge, the wisdom, the awareness starts to shift. You begin to be aware of a lot more. At that place, this is where you're the creator. It's all about creation.
Yeah.
And so what would you like to create? So it almost doesn't matter what, like you're saying, it doesn't matter what you're creating. You're just simply exploring. But isn't it nice if you could begin to get into that space where there is no drama, no fear, no doubts, none of those things, and you get into this place of well-being, that little child, that come as a little child, and you just play. And the attention point simply provides you what you are asking for.
And one of the keys to that is the light body, because
it is.
With the physical body, there's the fear of pain and death. And once you have allowed that light body, you don't go into that. Death becomes almost meaningless.
It's meaningless. It doesn't occur.
It doesn't occur. It doesn't exist. It's it's just not a variable. So then you feel free to really play. But when you're really locked into the old physical biology, which actually is not yours, this belongs to your not yours, but it belongs to your ancestors.
Yes, sure.
You've inherited
all that genetics.
Once you've adapted that light body, it really doesn't matter. But of course, that also provides some barriers, some fears, because people are like, I don't, to me that sounds an awful lot like death. And I guess in a kind of a rough manner of saying is, you're really committed to this when it doesn't matter anymore. I mean, mentally or physically. Well, if I go crazy, I don't care. It doesn't matter. And if the body dies, it doesn't really matter. But when you're still hanging on to that, so I have to maintain my mental balance, which is really way out of balance anyway. I have to maintain my physical body, which really isn't yours. That keeps you from going. That's a huge distraction.
Yeah. What I found in all the work, and now I'm watching 200, 300 people coming to that place where those last layers of the light body are engaged and they're experiencing it. All through the process, they continuously raise up the vibration. You begin to put different configurations of your awareness into place. You begin to turn on the brain, the eye of Horus, something referred to as the Ark of the Covenant. Huge component of your reality that starts to draw this consciousness into the body. But kind of where we're playing with it, you change the molecular structure, you change the secretions of the fluids, you change the hormones, you change the ATP into this sustaining vibrational field. That's what I'm watching occur in those 200 people. The need for dying is not necessary, although Yeshua said one day, you don't have to die, but you will step out of the body. Because there's more. That's the reason. Not because like, oh my God, there's more. It's like, I want to go there. So you lay this down and you trade it in for a 2015 Ferrari model.
Or you realize that you don't need to carry around the old physical body, that you can appear and unappear. Whenever you want, however you want, whether it's here or anyplace else.
That's all real.
That's very real.
I mean, for most people will hear that as like, yeah, that's cool, that's really exciting, but I can't do that. There's the mental process of conceptualizing and the visceral process of internalizing are two very different things. But you're going to start to see these people beginning to be very different, and more of them are going to show up in public. And that's what all these people that we're working with, it's all about. This group, all these people listening to this conversation, they're the leaders. They're the keys to the game.
Yeah.
So when they quit, it's like one of the keys falls away.
Yeah.
But it's setting an entirely different tone for everything that's about to happen.
Adamus said recently that this is the year the popcorn starts popping.
Yes, that's a good example.
Been on the kettle for a while, heating up, it starts popping. It doesn't mean all of them are going to, but it means that there's this breakthrough. And I see this year, 2015, tremendous amount of supporting energy for that. But also at the same point, the other side of the coin is tremendous amount of distraction.
Tremendous.
And one of the distractions is drama, and not necessarily bad. Drama can be harsh, destructive, but drama can also be a lot of fun. And I like a little bit of drama.
Sure, it's fun.
There's part of me that says, oh, yeah, but, geez, you're an ascended. If I was to be in this ascended master, there wouldn't be any drama left. And Adamus is like, you've got to be kidding.
You missed the picture.
Yeah,
right.
But it's that human part that enjoys the kick of life and driving down the highway at accelerated speeds and doing crazy things once in a while. Actually getting into a good rile with somebody.
Yeah, but that's joy.
Yeah.
That's a real joy. That's a real experience. At these levels we're stepping into, joy is kind of a higher dimensional vibrational field. And so there's no reason to give that up.
No, but also Adamus said, what makes you think that you still can't do that when you want? And I'm, right, yeah, that's right.
Right.
You can still have that drama if you choose, but you're probably not going to choose the way you used to do.
Yeah.
Because there's something different. There's creation, real creation.
Yep. Yeah, and with no limitation.
Yeah.
So what makes that part so exciting is you can create something and not get what you want. Now, it's not that you don't get it because you created it and you failed. It simply is you put all the pieces together, you built your puzzle, you said, wow, look at that. And then you went, it should be blue. Yeah. That's not a failure.
No.
That's simply the permission to step back, change the color, step forward, and go, yeah, that's much better.
Yeah.
That kind of excitement is creation.
Yeah.
It's really in the body and the physical level, but what we do is we go into, I failed. And then generally we quit.
Yeah.
And
but that's, in a way, to me, that's not the real definition of creating. That's constructing. And real creating is, like you're saying, playing with it and just creating, and then realizing the creator can create and uncreate and recreate.
Exactly.
And if you don't like the stage set here, you change it to what you do like, and you've got that flexibility.
Exactly. And you get to enjoy it in any capacity that you want to enjoy it in.
Yeah.
And so for as long as you want. That's what's coming. So, but that's the space where people need to hear that piece of information.
Yeah.
That's what's coming. I can let it go. I can let it leave. It's not mine. You can begin to be very fluid, very mobile in this process rather than the rigidness.
Yeah.
That's where these new answers are going to start to appear, and many are going to begin to appear.
So. Yeah, and I think as many people cross through that threshold and truly integrate in their life, it's going to be such a good example for other humans. What we have right now are examples of ascended masters who aren't really walking the earth right now for the most part, or the ones that are they're laying pretty low right now for a lot of reasons. But when they start seeing real humans who've gone through the same types of stories and issues that they have, that's going to have a tremendous impact.
Yeah.
Other people say, it's doable. It's not just rhetoric. It's not just a nice theory. It's actually being done. Yeah. And then they're going to race to get there.
That's the intention. That's who we're mastering alchemy. We're watching people. What we're talking about, they've done.
Yeah.
Not done, not doing.
Right.
I'm distinguishing. Now, how many of them? No, they're at that stage where they are now beginning to put on those garments.
Yeah.
But this experience of bringing the soul fully into the body, merging the oversoul and the Christed oversoul with the soul into the body. The game that's never really been successfully accomplished, according to the archangels, is bringing that fully Christed nature of who you are into a physical body.
Yep.
The fall of consciousness happened before that was able to occur.
Yeah.
And so now you're watching it 1 by 1, 10 by 10. It's going to be very exciting over these next couple of years.
Well, and I would invite everybody to also take a deep breath and go beyond your expectations of what you thought it was going to be, because those tended to come from a linear mind and tended to be definitions of a kind of a superhuman. And it's not like that at all. And I've have that in my own personal experience, a certain expectation of what this is going to be like, and the reality is very, very different, and actually better. It's, I think, ultimately much more about freedom and inner peace.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, freedom is such an amazing word. It's what we just described. I can do anything. Jump off the cliff and fly, and don't even think you're going to crash, because there's no room for that to happen in your creation.
So what would you say are some of the basics, suggestions for listeners for coming into this year? What would you, a few little tools?
Well, I think one of the things that a lot of the templates, a lot of the movies, if you would, are all in place to be observed casually or intentionally. I think people are going to start to be influenced by this shift of consciousness. I mean, what happened in 2012 is now very much engaged.
Right.
And that you're watching that divergence where the third dimensional reality, all those little hiccups and events that are going to happen, they're happening because how they used to happen isn't able to happen anymore. So they're at odds with themselves, and those events are falling away. Where at the same time, these possibilities and opportunities are beginning to be available. The key, though, is present time. Stay in your space, observe, choose, and then act, rather than shoot, ready, aim, and then go, oh, sorry, I didn't think that was supposed to happen.
Yeah.
But the key is really, I'm convinced, is present time, quiet. That doesn't mean reclusive. That means simply observing from a quiet, calm place, allowing. Those are words that are going to become very big this year.
Yeah. And I would absolutely agree with that. And to the premise that the enlightenment realization, whatever you call it, is ultimately a natural process.
Natural, absolutely.
Very, very natural. In other words, one doesn't really have to do anything other than the allowing. But that's really not in the nature of most humans. They feel they have to do something, work at it, stress with it. And if one were just to really allow, but that also means allowing stuff to leave your life when it's appropriate, allowing your body to go through its changes, and sometimes the soon-to-be master is going to get real sick, a flu, a cold, whatever, as a method of letting things go in their body. It doesn't have to happen that way, but it does. And can you allow that to be? Can you allow this stream of junky thoughts to just pass by? Allowing means not grabbing onto them, fighting them on the ground, or letting them get you on the ground, but really allowing. And again, it sounds simple, but in a world that this year is going to be very, very hectic and distracting and annoying and everything else, and other people annoying, it's going to make it more challenging.
Yeah. And that drama, the negative drama, very magnetic. You go into reaction and you stop, and you pull back, and you have fear and doubts and those kind of things. Those are very magnetic fields that begin to be challenging to let go of when you inhale but don't exhale. And that's what most people do in their lives. So I think you're going to see some really interesting changes this year. I had one fascinating experience a while back, again with Metatron, where he said, look forward. There is no forward, but look forward and see what all these people that are doing this work are going to do. And he was talking about massive amounts of people, including the ones mastering alchemy. But it was very clear. They'll go sit in the middle of New York City, Paris, London, France, doesn't matter where, whatever, Resume Speed, Iowa, and sit there in that space on a park bench, and they will alter the environment.
Yeah.
It's their presence that just creates this calming alternative choice that I never thought of this thought, but I could do this. And you're going to find that that one person is going to influence hundreds and thousands just by holding that level of light.
But
that's
not
what
the
happens.
Person sitting there on the park bench, efforting to change
No
the
effort.
world into their view. No effort, just their presence.
Their presence. Yeah. They are the beach. They are the light. They are that
Yeah.
calm environment. How would you like to live? I say, and you just simply say, like this.
Yeah.
And this begins to permeate through everybody, and they begin to see it.
Yeah.
And others choose.
Just sitting there on the park bench eating popcorn, not efforting anything.
No effort.
Absolutely enjoying.
No effort.
Yeah. Which brings me to a point I wanted to make for people who are wondering what can they do in their own lives. I would say for this year, one of the biggest thing is, was mentioned recently by Adamus, was quit the fight with yourself.
Yeah.
And so much fight, and this fight about your weight and about your bad habits and about your relationships with others and about your goals and your plans, and the list goes on and on and on. Forget about the fight. Just let it go. Stop trying to lose weight. Stop trying to quit your bad habits or all the rest of that, because it's all mental junk. It's irrelevant.
Yeah.
And you're not going to win the fight. It will beat you because it is you, but it's a projection of yourself. There's no need for it. Again, the enlightenment is natural. It doesn't care how old you are, how much you weigh, what your background is. Doesn't care if you just got out of prison last week. As a matter of fact, it's probably a little easier in some cases.
Yeah. Yes.
And I refer to literal prison as well as mental prison, but it doesn't care. But as long as you've got that fight going, you're engaged. You've engaged your consciousness in lower levels. You're not loving yourself, not allowing yourself, and you're not really going to get anywhere. That's the hurt. That's the pain that you and I both talk about in this, and let go of the fight. You
know, I say to people, we all say, love yourself. In real terms, people don't know what that means. They don't know how to do that. So back it down a little bit. What if you just liked yourself?
Right.
What if you were just pleased with yourself? What if you were just happy?
Mediocre acceptance.
Yes. Something down in this level where you, and then go out and look for beauty or look for well-being or just enjoy the moment.
Right.
See, at that point, you don't have any struggles.
Yeah.
And so if you could just simply get to that place where you choose, I'm going to just like myself. I'm going to walk out the door and admire the clouds just because.
Yeah.
What happens is that becomes a habit. The part of that makes it such a wonderful habit is it's natural. It's already part of that internal guidance system in the heart.
Yeah.
You just have forgotten.
Yeah.
So you get to that space, and pretty soon you're not smoking, you're not drinking, you're not doing all those things. You're losing weight, but you didn't do anything. It's all about how that thought and emotion bonds, and then it creates that magnetic field that is struggle. Unnecessary completely.
Good thing, from my own personal experience, good thing for people to do. Take yourself out to dinner some night at a nice restaurant, just you, and see how you get along with yourself.
Yeah. And can you have that meal?
Yeah.
You know, can you spend $30 or $40? Can you have that $20 glass of wine rather than the $2 glass of wine?
And can you not feel awkward sitting there at a nice restaurant during the regular prime hours
by yourself?
Can you order what you want off the menu? Can you have a conversation with yourself? In other words, can you enjoy your own company, being with yourself? It's a great barometer to see where you are with yourself.
Yeah, because it's just you and yourself.
Yeah.
And in that space, can I like myself?
Yeah.
And you'll be amazed at how many thoughts come up that rational mind says, well, what about? Remember when you did this?
Yeah.
And when you were young, and how much money are you spending?
Yeah. And, isn't it strange sitting there alone? And what does the waiter think? And what do the people over there think? And gee, I suddenly realize I've always been alone a lot in my life, and I like it, but I don't like it, but I try to mask it by surrounding myself with people. And why is it taking so long for the food to come out? And is the food made with it? Does it have chemicals? Shut up. Enjoy the meal. It truly is a great experience. And, for $100 or less, you can find out a lot about, are you liking yourself?
Yeah.
Are you okay with yourself? You get to the point where suddenly you just crack up laughing, going, it doesn't matter. I mean, then you can just sit there and absolutely enjoy it. You don't care what anybody else thinks or what you're thinking at that point. You just crack up laughing and enjoying it and realize how easy it actually was.
And it's interesting, as we're having this conversation, to all of you listening, ask yourself if you're arguing with this concept. Right now, here, how many are you going, oh, that's dumb, that's how much money do I spend, I can't do that. Right. That's the rational mind. That's the old noise that simply is constantly in motion. It has nothing to do with do you like you or don't you like it.
Well, how about this for a compromise? Well, instead of going to a restaurant, can I just go through a McDonald's drive-through?
Yeah.
Does that work? No. That's a
it's really about how can you have for yourself, can you like yourself. And it's just really simple. Can I like me? I like me today. One day at a time, 1 minute at a time. Yeah. You're going to find that your whole life reshifts around by being in present time, liking yourself in that simplicity.
Yeah. Well, it's funny, too, because after the experience, maybe you try it a couple times, but you suddenly realize that actually you can go to that restaurant as the master. You don't worry about money because you know it's there. Suddenly you don't feel awkward because the waiter is wondering, why you're sitting there by yourself, and suddenly they don't put you over back in the corner. Suddenly you are the master, and you realize the waiter really wants to be of service, and the food really tastes good, and other people are feeling your amazing energy. And suddenly it's just like, life is good.
Yeah, and then even take it one step further and look to the person next to you and say, hello, how's your meal?
Yeah.
I don't know them, and I don't want to intrude, and you do.
Yeah.
You want to just say hello.
Absolutely.
One of the most magic words on the planet.
Absolutely.
So.
Amazing.
It is. You are.
Good. And you too, sir. Good getting together.
It is. It's nice to be here with you. It's a good opportunity. So, good.
Well, thank you.
I'm good.
It.
This was enjoyable. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed.
Thanks, everybody.